Welcome back, everyone. This is part 2 of our series, What I Wish I Knew in High School. So this video series was inspired by a few of our own subscribers.
Yeah, and we had a lot of people reach out about topics they want to hear, including party, alcohol, safety, and of course, sex.
Yes, so this series, we're kind of addressing how all those things kind of interact and affect each other.
Yeah.
So on this channel, we talk all things relationships for teens and young adults, and we tend to tie in some pop culture references as well. So if that's something you think you could benefit from, then go ahead and like and subscribe. As you probably noticed already, we have Suze joining us again.
And if you don't know who I am, then you need to stop the video, go back and find part 1 and rewatch that.
So this is our part 2 where we are going to be talking about alcohol and consent. This is right up Suze's alley because her programs talk all about dating, safety, and sexual assault. Before we really get into this video, we do want to give you guys a bit of a disclaimer.
Right, we are talking about sexual assault. It's a very sensitive topic. We are going to be having some stories that we share that might be a little bit more graphic. So if at any point in time you guys think it might be a little bit too much to hear, just, pause, take a second.
So how about you go ahead and start us off by defining consent?
Okay, well, consent is the permission that is given, right? So it has to be a verbal yes. It's not a lack of a no, right? The person needs to be of sound mind and sober, and they need to be of the same mental capacity, as well as they have to be of legal age.
So you brought up a few really important things to understand about consent. One thing is that just because someone didn't say no doesn't mean the answer is yes.
Right.
That's super important. What that also implies is that you have to be able to communicate. And you mentioned you have to be of sound mind and sober. That's kind of where the whole alcohol conversation comes into play.
Alcohol is a huge part of that, especially when it comes to young people drinking.
Exactly. And so alcohol blurs the lines of consent. If you know anything about how alcohol actually works, it starts to shut down your prefrontal cortex. That is the thinking part of your brain, the part of your brain that helps you assess risk, make decisions, and even communicate.
I mean, that's why the drinking age is 21, is because your brain isn't fully developed yet until after the age of 21.
Yeah. So not only for teenagers, your brain's not fully developed there, but then you add on alcohol, that's going to affect even more your thinking and stuff like that.
Yeah, so that brings up a lot of questions. Usually people are saying, well, what if, they're both drunk?
Right.
And does that mean it's rape if both people are drunk and they have sex?
Right.
There's a lot of questions there.
Yes. And I think one of the reasons why we tend to ask all these questions, like, well, what if they said yes before they got drunk? Or what if one of them was drunk? What if they're in a relationship? There's lots of what ifs. I think it's because as a culture, we have a hard time accepting that alcohol and sex combined can equal rape. And I think it's hard for us.
And it's not rape every single time.
Right.
But it definitely can be because of the law's definition of it, which is that you cannot be drunk and get legal consent.
Right.
So
it can be kind of confusing,
Yeah.
and the culture that we live in, I think, makes it even more confusing because if you think about movies and TV shows and the music that we listen to, there are so many messages about getting drunk, going to a party, getting drunk, doing drugs, and then hooking up with someone.
That's all the time you see that in movies.
Yes, and that is a
songs.
theme that has been a part of our culture for literally decades. Okay, so I found 3 specific songs. They're from different decades where these themes of getting drunk and then having sex with someone are just super normalized.
Drunken hookups.
Yes. The first song is one that's super popular right now. It's viral on TikTok. It was released in 2022. It's Cuff It by Beyonce. Okay, so I'm gonna read these problematic lyrics to you guys. Okay, so she says, I need some drink in my cup. I need a prescription. Okay, so obviously, obviously already talking about drugs and alcohol. But then the entire chorus of the song is just about sex. It is very clear that this song is literally just about getting drunk and having sex. Okay, so this is in 2022. We're still spreading this message that that's okay. Okay, next example.
Well, there's a song called Blurred Lines, and Robin Thicke sings it. There's a couple lines in there, but the one that probably sticks out is talking about getting blasted. I hate these blurred lines. I know you want it, but you're a good girl. So it's kind of just saying, all right, well, we're going to have some alcohol. There's going to be blurred lines, but we're going to hook up.
Right.
And
it seems like you want it. You haven't actually said if you want to have sex, but we've been drinking. It's implied, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Our third example is a song from 1944. It is very familiar. It's Baby It's Cold Outside.
I mean, it's a great song. However, there are some lyrics in it that are a little bit iffy.
Let me read them to you. Okay, so baby, it's bad out there. And then she says, say, what's in this drink? As in, this is really strong. Did you even drunk this drink?
Yeah, that's kind of why are you putting this alcohol in my drink to try and get me to stay and not go home?
Yeah, and then the answer is no. but baby, it's cold outside.
Right.
Okay.
So his response to the no is, well, it's cold outside, like almost like the convincing.
Right.
Which we go into talking about coercion a lot in the program, which is like, I'm going to put that pressure on you to make you feel like you need to do this, right? And that's putting that blame and shame back on the person.
Yes.
That's
Whether
not healthy.
Exactly. Whether it's all just verbal or if there's alcohol involved. Like, and if there's both of those things, that's like even worse, obviously.
And it happens a lot in dating relationships. You see that people will use alcohol and try and get that hookup to happen because they're more likely to do so when they're drunk.
Yeah.
To say yes.
To say yes.
And if they're using the alcohol to persuade, that's just showing you that they're pushing boundaries.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is like just super normalized.
Yeah.
It's all over our culture.
Absolutely.
Like I said, like it's been in our songs and movies and TV shows for decades, which is why it's even more important for us to talk about it because people don't really want to accept that literally having drug sex could be rape because it's so normalized. So those are just 3 examples, but there are so many more that exist out there. So I want you guys to pause for a second, and in the comments, I want you to drop a few songs that kind of have problematic lyrics or messages, maybe even a TV show or a movie scene that you think of. Let's just like brainstorm because I want you guys to recognize how common this theme is in our culture.
I have a story, actually.
Great. Yes, let's hear it.
So one of my friends in college, she was my roommate, went to a party, and the guy that was hosting the party, she knew. They were friends from high school, and she liked this guy. And while we were there, she was getting drinks given to her by this guy, hard alcohol shots.
Sure.
And she was taking the shots, and before she knew it, she was totally blacked out drunk, didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
Well, that's the last thing she remembers was being in the party, talking, socializing. The next thing she knows is she's waking up, and she's completely naked on the couch in a garage by herself.
Yeah.
And she had been raped. But the thing is like, in her mind, she didn't say, oh, I've been raped. It was more along the lines of, this is all my fault. Like, she put that blame back on herself, which we need to realize that anytime that there's alcohol involved and someone takes advantage of another person, that is rape.
Yeah.
Okay, whether or not we want to put that label on it or not, it is what it is. And it's hard to hear that term, like, oh, you were raped, or oh, I was raped, because as soon as you hear that, that's a hardcore word.
It's a harsh,
that's a hardcore word.
Yeah.
So if you hear that, it's not something that you should take lightly. It's not something you should question. Like, oh, are you sure that's what happened? Like, you were kind of drunk. You don't really know what happened. It's like, regardless, that person is drunk. They aren't able to know what's going on.
Yeah.
So having sex with a person that's under the influence is taking advantage of a person and is considered sexual assault. And we need to realize that if we're making choices like drinking and hooking up and all those things. So like, alcohol needs to be looked at as a risk factor, not the cause of the sexual assault, right?
And that's really important too, because a lot of times when alcohol is involved, we tend to victim blame. So like, well, if you didn't drink so much, or if you wouldn't have gone out, or if you didn't get drunk, then you wouldn't have gotten assaulted.
Right.
And that's just the completely wrong mentality to have.
Absolutely.
Like, no, if there wasn't a perpetrator, then there would not have been a sexual assault.
Yeah. Questioning that mindset, like, why did you think it was okay to then attack a person who was intoxicated, or go after that person? That's the point that we need to be making. Not, you shouldn't have been drinking that much, you shouldn't have been wearing that outfit, pointing the finger at the victim as if it's their fault they got raped.
Yeah.
That's impossible. If they wanted it, then it wouldn't be rape.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So
just to clarify here, like for the rest of this conversation too, is that alcohol is a risk factor. Alcohol is not like the one to blame or whatever, but it is important for you to be aware that alcohol and like sexual assaults can end up going hand in hand. And so we want you to be aware of that so you can avoid that, so you can set boundaries, so you can protect yourself and like lower those risk factors.
And when it comes to partying and drinking and all those things, I want to kind of reiterate some statistics when it comes to that.
Perfect.
Half of all sexual assaults on college campuses involve a situation in which the perpetrator, the victim, or both were consuming alcohol. Paying attention to that type of statistic will basically allow you to be more safe. If you go out and party and not drink alcohol, you're at a less likelihood of getting sexually assaulted.
Right, yeah. And
or being the perpetrator.
Right, yeah, that too. And just as a former college student, that statistic is definitely accurate. I would even argue that it's probably a lot higher. Obviously, that statistic was specific to college. You're going to see similar themes when it comes to like high school partying as well. But I do have one specific statistic about high schoolers that I want to share with you guys. Of high school students who were sexually active, 21.2% said that they drank alcohol or used drugs before their last sexual intercourse. Whether we're talking about college or high school teenagers, this is an important theme to discuss.
Right, absolutely.
But I also want to be clear that we definitely encourage young people to set some boundaries when it comes to areas like partying, sex, and alcohol. Absolutely. The safest option for teens is to just not drink, and also when it comes to sex, like waiting to have sex until they're in a long-term committed monogamous relationship or marriage, that is the healthiest option. So we really do want to encourage you to consider that and set some boundaries. But obviously it is an issue, and so we want to also prepare you guys in case you ever get into a situation that you didn't think you'd be in. We want to give you guys some practical advice for avoiding those more sketchy or risky situations. So Suze, let's talk about that advice.
Let's talk about it. Well, of course, like, I encourage the young people to talk to their parents. I mean, that's good. They want to keep you safe. Their whole goal in life is to care for you and want to keep you in an environment where you're not going to get into trouble. So I know that could be, stuff you don't want to talk about with your parents, but they're the ones that are looking out for you probably the most in life. So talk to them. Boundaries as far as what you're comfortable with, and also like who you're with is a big part of that.
Yes, I think in general, one of the main things that you need to think about is the who you're with. That's like the relationship that you're in. If you're in a dating relationship, like knowing what a healthy relationship looks like. So does that person respect you, respect your boundaries?
Can you trust that person?
But then who you're with, as in your friends as well. So make sure you're sticking with friends that you can trust and that know your boundaries. Like if you are not comfortable with going home with someone sober, if you want to do that sober, then your friend should be aware of that and look out for you like later in the night to make sure you don't cross that boundary. Like, is it your friend's responsibility? No. Okay. But obviously having people that can look out for us in any type of social situation is super beneficial.
Picking the right friends.
Exactly.
And then one other piece of advice, if there's alcohol involved in your night, not accepting drinks from people you don't know, and also like don't have alcohol that is open so that they could put possibly like a roofie or something into your drink. So don't accept those drinks from anybody. But not only that, alcohol in itself is the #1 date rape drug. So people don't necessarily put roofies in their drink to get you to do things you're not going to normally do. They're just going to give you the drink itself.
And then so that also leads to another pretty practical piece of advice is like, don't leave your drinks unattended. Okay. Because as Suze mentioned, alcohol is considered to be the #1 date rape drug. And so that doesn't require, sneaking a pill or anything in there. But obviously that can still happen too. So just be aware of what's going on.
So with all that being said, to wrap it up, we really want to encourage you guys to make smart choices. We understand there's lots of temptation out there with drinking, especially, parties and things like that. But using this information to kind of make the best choices for you guys, hence why we're Best Choice. And we want you guys to stay healthy, safe, and strong.
There we go. Got the tagline right there. All right. And if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to comment. We might add another video to this series. Maybe we'll reply to some of your questions. If you want to see Suze come back in another video, let us know in the comments.
And also this program, Date Safe and Stay Safe, are free programs we offer. All you gotta do is reach out. You can write a comment down low and say, hey, I want to learn self-defense, or I want to learn more about the Date Safe program and how to prevent sexual assault. So
great. So if you're interested in that, don't hesitate. But that is all we have. So make sure to like and subscribe. Go on over to our Instagram and TikTok accounts as well. You can learn some more info about what we do and just about healthy relationships. So we will see you later.